practicing transactional and dispute resolution laws for the last 43 years. He graduated with first class honors from Elphinstone College, stood first in the University of Bombay at the LLB exam. He was awarded the Rotary International Scholarship to study postgraduate law at Cambridge University, UK, where he secured a starred first. He also stood first at the Bombay Solicitors exam. So, sir, since everything is first for you, Mr. Burgess Desai, since everything is first for you, should you have been the first speaker today? You don't mind that? Okay. From 2003, Mr. Desai was the managing partner, and from 2016, he was the senior partner of J. Sagar Associates, well known as JSA, a national law firm having more than 300 lawyers. He retired from JSA and now he's an independent legal counsel engaged in private client practice. That is succession, estate planning for HNIs and promoter families through wills, trusts, and family arrangements. Resolving family, testamentary, and business disputes through mediation and confidential fast track arbitration. Mr. Desai is director of leading listed and non-listed public companies in India, including the Great Eastern Shipping Company Limited, Praj Industries Limited, Jubilant Food Works Limited, Man Infra Construction Limited, Star Health and Allied Insurance Company Limited, Chambal Fertilizers and Chemicals Limited, MCure Pharmaceuticals Limited, and Inventorous Knowledge Sounds Solutions Limited. A former working journalist, Mr. Desai is a writer and a columnist. His books, all those Parsis, A to Z of the Parsi way of life, and The Babaji, Chronicles of a Vanishing Community, have been on the bestseller list of Amazon essay books. His novel, Towers of Silence, relates to a 140-year-old saga of a Parsi clan in Navsari. His other two books, Navsari Tales and Murder at the Racecourse, are in print. He is currently working on Sasania, a work of historical fiction about the last days of the Sasanian Empire. He is continuously researching, including academic journals and books by scholars of Iranian origin and Western scholars. Mr. Desai is an ordained priest, being a Nawar and a Martab from Navsari. He was a petitioner before the Bombay High Court to stop the metro lines from running under the Atash Behrams, as Mr. Kaisi Limatwala told us. He has founded a charity trust for preserving Agyaris and for the benefit of Mobids. Our chief guest, Mr. Burgess Desai, will now give his keynote address on Aradvisur Anahit, Supreme Goddess in a different perspective. A round of applause for our chief guest. Bolo ji.
I read all these articles in Parsiana, and today I came specially to see who is Burgess and I want to hear him personally.
And now you are impressed having seen him, you will be doubly impressed after having heard him. Over to you, Mr.
Thank you, Zarin. Vara Rastogi Sahib, Kersi, Zarek, the organizers of today's function, ladies and gentlemen. The topic of this evening, what Zarin said, is a slight correction. Aredvi Sur Anahite, the most supreme goddess of Zoroastrianism. And the emphasis was on the word most. This time around the year, as we all know, Parsis experience a lot of devotional fervor within a span of just 3 weeks or so, first on Mehr Maino and Mehr Roach for Mehr Yazid, and it is followed today for Ardavisur Anaite, or popularly Ava Yazid. Even centuries later, this devotional fervor has not dimmed, and this demonstrates the hold which these two divinities have over the collective consciousness of Zoroastrians all around the world. Now, in Avra Mazda's cabinet of ministers, there are 7 Ameshas Penta, or what we popularly call Ameshaspans, including himself. Now, these are the cabinet ministers, and below them, there are innumerable Yazads, out of which 23 Yazads are named Yazads, and Mehr Yazad and Ava Yazad come in the list of those 23 Yazads or deputy ministers. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the crux. That if the spiritual status of Mehr Yazad and Aretvisur Anaite, as we shall see in the next few minutes, is so exalted, how can they be mere deputy ministers in Aura Mazda's cabinet? And therefore, what I wish to highlight is that we are all grossly underestimating the spiritual status of both Mehr Yazad and Ava Yazad. It's far beyond any Amesha's Penta, and it is just below Aura Mazda himself. And there is huge scholarly, archaeological, iconographic evidence from rock inscriptions, coins, various other evidence which is accepted world round with research scholars, that their spiritual status is very grossly underestimated. From times immemorial, as we know, every faith and every religion believes in the Divine Mother, or what is called the feminine divine. That's the divine or the feminine aspect of the divine power. And those of the feminine divine who have presided over water have been most popular and most powerful. Because water, as we know, is the greatest purificatory agent. It's the most sacred ritual element. And those of this feminine divine who preside over waters and control waters, they are the givers of fertility, of prosperity, of cleansing, of chastity. And that is where Aretvisur Anait, Our Lady of the Waters, is the most supreme goddess or the feminine divine of Zoroastrianism. As we know, 3 Persian empires ruled from around 550 BC to 651 AD, that is for over 1000 years. And those 3 Persian empires were first the Achaemenids, then the Parthians, and finally the Sasanians. But much before Achaemenid rule started in 550 BC or around that, in eastern Iran, Anahita worship was already prevalent. The rock inscriptions have been found recently in the Zagros mountain range in western Iran, which date back to as long as 2214 BC, which is 4200 years ago, where temples dedicated and rock inscriptions showing Anahita worship are prevalent. So, Ardavisur Anaite is perhaps the most ancient goddess known to mankind. She has gone under various names in various cultures and various faiths. In Mesopotamia and in Babylon, she went under the name of Ishtar. The Romans had their Isis, the Greeks had Aphrodite, Artemis, Athena. These were all the Greek names. And finally, there was Anaita. Now, ancient Persian kings had a lot of Mesopotamic connections and Babylonian connections. And therefore, the Mesopotamic epithet, Banu or lady, was added in the Avesta to Ava Ardhavisur Banu. Now, these roots, and this is what makes this Zoroastrian pantheon of gods have a close connection with a natural extension of several deities like Babylonian deities. Over a period of time, Anahita worship became more and more popular, and temples were set up all over Iran and Persia, which had statues of gold made in her form, which were worshipped. It was only during the second half of the Sasanian Empire, when Zoroastrianism undoubtedly was the state religion, that the priestly classes or the clergy became more orthodox and conservative. But more than that, they became what is known as iconoclastic. Now, iconoclastic means anti-worship of statues or icons. And slowly and gradually, all the temples of Anahita, the statue was replaced with the holy fire. Because the thinking of that time came to believe that however powerful a god or a goddess may be in the Zoroastrian pantheon or wherever, it cannot be worshipped in the form of statues. And as we all know, even we don't worship holy fire, we consider holy fire to be the symbol or the sun of Ahura Mazda. So her temples, which were far and many, and they were there right up to the last king Yazdizar Shahryar of the Sasanians, after which the empire came to a virtual end. His coronation also took place in a temple of Anahita, where he was coronated and he got the crown. So it was there all along. Of course, after the Arab invasion and the rise of Islam, Anahita worship naturally fell out. Islam itself, as you know, is an iconoclastic religion which does not believe at all in worship of statues and icons. But in a very strange way, this Islamic iconoclastic philosophy was inspired, and there is historical evidence to that, by later day Zoroastrianism. Notwithstanding such statue worship coming to an end, Aredvisur Anahit continued to be one of the most powerful goddesses who always remained in the collective consciousness of Zoroastrians. We may not know that she is the only one in Avesta who has three titles, Aredvi, Sur, Anahita. The other two are those with two words like Amesha, Spenta. She is the only one in Avesta with three titles, which highlights that she is the feminine aspect of the divine power, almost a spiritual equal or just below Ahura Mazda. This replacement of statues with the holy fire is one of the reasons why a practice developed that you do not pray the Ava Nyash or the Ava Yast in a fire temple, because it is believed that the Lady of the Waters is inconsistent with the presence of the holy fire, and therefore it is a custom which has developed over the centuries that you don't pray Ava Nyash or Ava Yast in the fire temple. Now, apart from the three titles, Aredvisur Anaite has got several other things which points to her higher spiritual status. As we know that in the Zoroastrian calendar, there are a few of the divinities to whom both a month and a day is dedicated. There are naturally 12, out of which 7 are Amesha Spentas. So leaving them out, there are 5 Yazats: Farvadin, Tir, Adar, and of course Mer and Ava. Both Mer and Ava have a very large dedicated, they have both a Nyash and a Yash dedicated to them. All Yazats don't have a Nyash, even some of the Amesha Spentas don't have a Nyash and a Yash both dedicated to them. But both, as far as Mer is concerned and Ava Yazat is concerned, both a Nyash and a Yash has been dedicated to them. Not only that, these Yash come under what is known as the very long category. Now, one of the seminal pieces of work on Ava Ardhavesur Banu and on her status has been done by an English scholar, a very respected scholar called Dr. Mary Boyce, who is a very conservative, traditional conservative scholar. As a matter of fact, she was the mentor of one of our most scholarly high priests in India today. So her research has always been accepted as not just being Western scholarly research, but something which is highly respected. So Dr. Boyce says that Ava Yast, which is Yast number 5, was perhaps composed just after the Gathas. However, in later Sasanian times or mid-Sasanian times, when King Shapur II came to power, and this was for as long as 70 years he ruled, and he was one of the most orthodox kings of Sasania, and where his prime minister or his highest of high priests or Mohammedan Mohammed was Adarbad Marispan, whose name we take with reverence. He was almost a quasi-prophet. He was the one on whose naked chest molten lava was poured, and he appeared unscathed without any damage to him. So this Adarbad Marispan, sometime in 339 AD onwards, not only composed several of the prayers post Gatha, but he and his team edited portions of the Avayast. And certain portions were expunged where it was of a non-Avasta origin. But even he retained the passages, and this is very important, where right in the beginning of Avayas, Auramazda himself seeks a boon from Ava Ardhavesur Banu, that may Zarathustra succeed in propagating my religion. This is in the very first stanza of the Avayas, for those of us who recite it regularly. And then Zarathustra in the 21st stanza himself seeks the blessings of Ava Ardhavesur Banu, that I should be given the power or the blessing to induct King Vistas into the Zoroastrian faith and start the faith afresh. So, Adarbad Marispan had an opportunity to expunge some of these passages, particularly the one relating to Auramazda himself seeking a boon, but he did not. Because by that time, monotheism was on the rise. Zoroastrianism was a monotheistic religion which believed in one supreme god, which was Auramazda. And there is another story with which we will come, a very interesting story as to what happened during that time. So, because they believed in one supreme god, a god with a capital G, where you cannot make him coexist with gods or goddesses with a small g, however divine they may be. So, this was Auerbach Marispen's thinking. The theological conservatism was there, but he did not expunge the passage where Auramazda seeks a blessing from Avar, the Visulban. Now, the same Dr. Boyce says that the Achaemenid kings, once they accepted Zoroastrianism, they gradually assimilated Anahita into the Zoroastrian faith and the Zoroastrian communities. She says there was a bit of a problem because in Avesta there was no direct reference to Anahita, and therefore the words Aredvi Sur were added to Anahita, meaning the pure, powerful river in a literal translation. At this stage, we must refer to the status of Meher Yazid because the story goes parallel to Ava Yazid. And this is something which is not so well known. But once again, it is established by scholarly research by the same Dr. Boyce and a whole host of Persian and Western scholars that the Aura status was not only given to Auramazda but Aura Meher, which is Meher Yazid. And it was also given to a third Aura who is now gone out of the Zoroastrian cosmology called Aura Apam Napat. Now, this third aura is very important in relation to Ava Yazid, as we shall see in a moment. So, essentially, these three auras is what is called the auraic triad or auraic trio. Of course, Auramazda was undoubtedly the first amongst equals. But Aura Meher or Meher Yazid was considered to be Aura, and in Meher Yasht, and this is the official translation of Meher Yasht now, where Auramazda himself says that if anybody is capable of being worshipped alongside me, it is only Meher Yazid. This is in the Meher Yasht itself. So why was Meher Yazid from an Aura not even made an Amesha Spenta? He straight away was classified as a Yazid or a deputy minister. And this is a political historical situation which developed. So, without going too much into history, because otherwise we'll be here till 9 o'clock, the Parthians, the Second Empire, were in a manner of speaking overthrown by the Sasanians. But they accepted the sovereignty of the Sasanians and they were sort of simmering with defeat. And there was always this rivalry between Parthians on the one hand and Persians or Parsig, as they were called, Parsig. And it was always simmering, but nevertheless they decided that they have to come together. And they formed this confederacy, which is called the Persian-Parthian Confederacy, which was the backbone without which no emperor or king could rule. Now, let us just go back, and this is a very interesting part of history, to the last great Persian empire, not Yazdizar Shahryar. He was a very weak king, unfortunate of course, but a very weak king. The last great Persian emperor was Khushru II, who ruled from 590 to 628 AD, and under whom nearly 35 to 38% of the world's population came under his power and control. And then, within 2 years, and historians were not only Zoroastrian historians, history as a period, they record that in the annals of war, there has never been a more dramatic reverse, that in 2 years everything was lost. And why this was lost? One of the major reasons was that tension started developing between the Parthians and the Persians in this confederacy. And Khushru II was, his principal queen was Queen Shirin, who was a Armenian servant girl who caught Khushru's eye at some royal banquet and who became the principal queen of Khushru. Now, to please this queen, Khushru subjugated Jerusalem in 614 AD and brought home the true cross on which Christ was crucified, which was a huge affront and insult to the Christian Byzantine Empire, which was at war with Persia. So he brought this true cross, and it is believed that this true cross brought a curse upon Khushru to some extent. And his prime minister, Zoroastrian prime minister, warned him not to do it. But he did so. And the same Khushru then started losing control. And these Persians and Parthians came together to oust him. And he was replaced by one of his sons from another Christian wife called Queen Maryam. This man called Shero, he overthrew Khushru, and overnight he killed Khushru and 17 of his brothers and stepbrothers in one of the biggest massacres in Persian history. And this is the reason why suddenly there was a vacuum, because generations and generations of male royalty was killed. So Khushru ultimately, when he knows that his time is near, he goes and prays in the temple of Anahita, by which there is no statue. And he says that I am seeking your boon, Anahita. I have sought your boon many times, but now I am not seeking the boon for my kingdom to come back or my power to come back. I only want my traitorous son to be punished. Now, whether we don't know whether Aridvisur Banu heard the prayer or not, but within 8 months of Khushru's death, Shero perished in bubonic plague after just ruling the country for 8 months. So coming back to this Meher Yazid point, that the Parthians were big worshippers of Meher or Meher, who was also well known in Greece, Rome and Hellenistic periods. Meher was the god who presided over contracts between man and man and between treaties between nations. He was the ultimate judge. So Avesta itself says that there was a conflict between Ahriman and Auramazda, which Auramazda of course vanquished Ahriman. But the judge in that was Meher. So to that extent, that shows that Meher is considered to be somebody who was capable of judging even the most divine contest. Now these Parthians used to worship Meher, and this Meher worship became one of the major causes for the decline of the Persian Empire. As a result of which the Orthodox clergy in Sasanian times slowly started downgrading Meher, and ultimately from an aura he came straight away to a Yazid, because you could not completely obliterate him. He was so much there in the public consciousness that it was not possible to completely eliminate him. So he was brought straight away from first class, not even to business class, but straight to economy. Now the third aura, and this is where the Amayazat story continues, was Apam Napat. And in almost all our gay prayers, Rastruji Sahib will confirm, there is an exaltation to him even today called Apam Naptarem Yazamaide. It is to be found in several of the Nyashis. Just as Kersi said that exaltation to Aredvisur Anaita is to be found almost in every major Nyash and Yast. Similarly, for Meher Yazar also, Mithrem Vauru Goyotim Yazamaide is to be found in several of the Yasts and Nyashis, even which don't relate to him. So, even Apam Napatem Yazamaide, now who was this forgotten god who just went out from aura into oblivion? So, he also is regarded in the Avastha as a grandson of the waters. He, like Aredvisur Anaite, presided over waters, but he was a very martial, a military style god, was a no-nonsense god. And ultimately, this Apam Napat possibly he was known through various faiths. In the Rig Veda, he is referred to as Varuna. Similarly, his references are there in Hellenistic and Greek forms. So the Persian clergy or the Sasanian clergy gradually completely eliminated him. Of course, his exaltation and the prayers continued. But they did one more thing. They removed all the characteristics of Apam Napat and conferred upon Aredvisur Anai. That is the reason why in Avayast, scholars have been confounded that instead of feminine pronouns, suddenly masculine pronouns come. This is because Aredvisur Anaiti was equally powerful even before, but then she became a compounded divinity. A combination of herself and Apam Napat, who was also this grandson of waters. As a result of which, Aredvisur Anaite became more popular. It was not easy to downgrade her. She was very resilient. She presided over functions like fertility, prosperity, healing. It was so vital to mankind. And she occupied a great position in the religious and devotional fervor of Zoroastrians. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is enough for today, except to say that we must appreciate that when we pray to Meher Yazad and Ava Yazad from today, we are really underestimating how powerful, spiritually powerful these so-called Yazads are. They are even beyond Amesha Spenta. And also spare a thought for that forgotten aura, Apam Napat Naptarem Yazamaide. Maybe there is no mass adulation for him like Meher and Ava. So maybe if you pray to him in the morning, your chances of his boon being accepted are greater. Thank you.
You have imparted so much knowledge into our minds. What you know about our past history of thousands of years ago is unbelievable. No wonder you have written so many books on these subjects. Keep up all your good work, Mr. Burgess Desai, and thank you for sharing all your knowledge with us here today. Virat will now sing Paar Se Hame Chahiye, and Mr. K.C. Limatwala has suggested that all of us sing along with him. Auntie Khali તમે નહીં, આપણે બધા ગાશું. હા, તમે બી જરૂર ગાજો, જરૂર ગાજો.
એનું નામ તે બાવાજી.
તે બી બાકી છે?
હા, એક ગાયને પછી છૈયા અમે જતોસ્તી.
નહીં, છૈયા અમે જતોસ્તી અમને નથી. પાર સે હમે છૈયે.
એ નથી.
K.C. wants us to sing that.
નહીં, તે જ છે. છૈયા અમે જતોસ્તી તે પારસી માં છૈયા નથી.
K.C.
નહીં, તે ગાય
નહીં નહીં, બેઉ ગાવાનું જ, પેલું પછી ગાવાનું જ.
બાવાજી. બાવાજી. તે જવાનું મેન કરે.
Wow, okay, he's singing a different one, પણ તે બી તમને આવડતું હોય તો જરૂર ગાજોજી.
હમણાં ટ્રેક નથી.
I would request કે બધા ધ્યાનથી આ ગાયનના શબ્દોને અંડરસ્ટેન્ડ કરો.
Ladies and gentlemen, some of you are leaving. I promise you, our khali vote of thanks baki che. So if you stay back, you will go home with heavy parcels in your hands. Thank you.
આપણે આદિ મિર્ઝાનું લખેલું એનું નામ તે બાવાજી. થેન્ક યુ.
gentlemen, the vote of thanks will be delivered by Edward Zeric Dastur. Zeric is an advocate practicing in the field of dispute resolution, litigation, arbitration, securities, and competition law. He is a triple gold medalist in law from Bombay University. He writes regularly for Jame Jamshed in his column, Legally Speaking, where he answers legal queries posed by members of the community. He has represented our community before the Honorable Bombay High Court and the Honorable Supreme Court of India in the case against Mumbai Metro Corporation concerning the Vadyaji and Anjuman Atish Berams. He also represented the community before, in the case concerning the last rites of Zoroastrians who succumbed to COVID-19 through the traditional Dokmenashini system. His representation on community matters is on a pro bono basis, no charge. Zeric has received an award for Outstanding Zarathustri Young Entrepreneur and Professional of the Year 2017 at the World Zarathustri Chamber of Commerce Global Meet held in December 2017 at Bengaluru. He is now a director of the WZCC India region. He recently completed his Martab ceremony and he is a fully ordained priest. He gives boy at the Boys Fire Temple from time to time. Advocate Edward Zeric Dastur will now sum up today's function and will deliver the vote of thanks. Would you like to have the mic there?
That's fine. Thank you, Mrs. Commissariat, for a very kind introduction. Respected Varadasturji, respected Chief Guest Mr. Desai, Mr. Limitwala, and my fellow members of the Parsi Zoroastrian community. Today, we are all here to pay homage to our Ardhavishwar Banu. And we have all witnessed a special evening starting with the Jashan ceremony performed by our Varadasturji and various other mobbeds, and interesting topics on diverse subjects by Varadasturji, our chief guest, Mr. Limatwala, and also a night filled with music, festivities, and of course a Dharni Puri which awaits you. My first association with the Avayazat Parab event organized at Radio Club for over 30 years by Mr. Limatwala was around 8 years ago when I was invited here to speak at this function. On that day, I had expressed a message of hope for our community. And today, as I look back, from that day to this, it gives me a lot of reassurance that even today, there are hundreds of members of our Zoroastrian community who throng such events in such large numbers, and we are there to devote our time, our energy, our attention to such an important event for our community. This is what fortifies our faith and gives us hope for the future. Many of us who would have traveled to Iran on various tours which are organized by many of our community members, you may have witnessed and been part of the event where they take you to the Caspian Sea, and right at the shores of the Caspian Sea they perform Hambandagi, and it is an enriching experience right at the shores of an ocean which is revered and regarded as holy as far as our Zoroastrian religion is concerned. Zoroastrianism, as we know, is a nature worshipping religion, and many of our prayers are prayers attributable to divinity, like Khorshid Niyash for the sun, Meher Niyash for the rays of the sun, Awa Niyash for water. And as Mr. Limitwala earlier mentioned, The prayers are based on the laws of Stauta Yasna, meaning the vibrationary effect that sound has. When you recite these words and when you match it with your thoughts, it creates a very, very powerful combination. For example, if you are praying the Avanyash and your thoughts also you imagine being at the shore of the ocean, the sound of the waves, and you create that kind of a manifestation where you are in an environment which is filled with holy vibes. And when that matches with the mantra of the prayers, or Avastha mantra, which are very, very powerful, that indeed creates a wonderful combination. Today, as I said, we've witnessed a wonderful event, and it takes a lot of effort and contribution by everyone in their own way, in their own capacity, to make such an event a success. We thank our Varadasturji Sahib, who has been gracing this event for a number of years, regularly performing the Jashan, and also for all the good work that he has been doing for the community at the government level. We thank our chief guest, Mr. Burgess Desai, for a wonderfully enlightening talk on various aspects of our religion. Many of you already know Mr. Desai is a very, very successful lawyer and a solicitor, one of the top names today in Mumbai. But Mr. Desai also, apart from his wonderful talks and his write-ups, speaks with his actions, which in that sense many a times are very silent. He is involved in a number of charitable and philanthropic endeavors, particularly to deal with our community. As you heard, he has set up a trust for the renovation of our Agyaris and Atash Berams, for which his office personally conducted a survey going from Agyari to Agyari to find out what are the requirements, what are the needs, and through his assistance, through his financial contribution, they can definitely benefit. Even when we were fighting the entire might of the government in the Mumbai metro matter, it was Mr. Burgess Desai who stood forward and contributed not only through his physical presence in terms of contribution, but also financially, because it is very important where in a case like this, where you are fighting the system going from Bombay High Court to Supreme Court, it entails a lot of expenses, and it is where individuals like Mr. Burgess Desai stepped in and contributed tremendously for the cause. We also have a number of individuals here today who have contributed. Mr. Feroz Setna of Setna Agro Private Limited, who, as Mrs. Commissariat mentioned, will give us a token of bottles containing his drinks. Mr. Bomsi Tavaria, who is here taking our photographs, as she mentioned, year after year, completely free of charge. We thank the Radio Club management for giving us this premises for which we can conduct this event year after year. We thank Mr. Viraf Daruwala for the wonderful manojats with which he really energized all of us. We thank Mashru decorators for all the wonderful decorations that you see. We all heard about the Dharni Puris, and we have had 2 vendors who have contributed towards this, and they are, one of the vendors is Parcelicious, who has contributed Dharni Puris, and the other vendor is Food Safari in association with NFS Catering Services. Both of these have contributed towards Dharni Puris, which all of you I'm sure will enjoy once you all have done with the event. I would like to thank Mr. K.C. Limatwala for all the efforts which he has put in personally over the years for making this event a success. His participation starts months in advance, where he gathers all the people together, gives them their designated roles, and this kind of planning, this kind of precision with which he undertakes his task is indeed remarkable. Thank you, Mr. Limatwala, for making this event a great success. Mr. Limatwala has a very competent team, which includes Mr. Kersi Commissariat, Mr. Darayas Desai, Mr. Hanos Patel, Mr. Kobar Kiwala, and Mr. Freddy Tukina. All of these individuals have contributed immensely to make this event a success. I thank the trustees of the M.J. Wadia Fire Temple Trust, the Morbeds of the M.J. Wadia Fire Temple, the staff of the M.J. Wadia Fire Temple who have been here helping us all around for all the various requirements here. And last but not the least, I thank Miss Zareen Commissariat, who with her energy and her exuberance lights up this evening like every year. And above all, I would like to thank all of you, because without you, it is not possible to make this event a success. Thank you for all coming in these large numbers to support the cause of our community. Now, one of the aspects, perhaps, which can be a takeaway for all of us is a message which probably would come from our Devi Surbhanu herself. And that message is for our community to stand together, united, and when we do so, as we have seen in various court cases, that when we stand together united as a common front, we can achieve a wonderful positive results. Thank you very much, everybody, and wish you all a wonderful evening. Thank you.
You may have seen when you first entered that there are stalls with yummy eatables and drinks, and I request you to please visit these stalls and splurge on the yummy eats. Thank you, fellow Zoroastrians, for being here with us today. It is time now to say bye-bye. See you all next year. We wish you all tandarusti, but please rise in your seats and we will all together sing Chahiye Hame Jaradosti.